How long did you spend playing around this ship that you weren't supposed to be visiting?
Oh, it was a long time because, you know, the weather was good and it was nice, and he wasn't in a hurry. The ship, the
tugboat captain, yeah.
Yeah, as long as he wasn't tying up, and he gave us a chance to strip and swim over
and head over. So how much of the vessel was visible above the surface?
Oh, it's huge structure. It was way out. I've had pictures of it, so you'll probably be showing pictures of it.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we're able to show those pictures while we talk.
Yeah.
So was the superstructure was above the water? And
oh, way above.
Okay, okay. But the hull was submerged.
Submerged.
So
right.
so the area where they scuttled it wasn't very deep.
No, it wasn't very deep. No, the harbor wasn't deep.
Right.
And then, like I say, we went up through the banana plantations. We went in Sao Paulo. We went around Sao Paulo, the city, in open-air streetcars that were built at Pullman Standard in Worcester.
So you traveled all the way to South America, to Sao Paulo in Brazil, and took a ride on a streetcar that was manufactured in Worcester.
In Worcester, right.
So even then, it was a small world.
Yeah. And like I say, we had a good time. I mean, we had overnight liberty, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
In South America. And the reason we had overnight liberty, that our skipper didn't go through the initiation as a shellback because he gave the ship overnight liberty. That was his
That's how he got out
penalty.
of it?
That's how he got out of it. In other words, nobody gets out of it unless, but the captain did because of that. But he was an older skipper anyway. But
right. But that's the ceremony where all the members of the vessel dress up in costumes and they initiate all the people on board the vessel that are just crossing the equator.
Yeah.
Right.
And that happened on January 13th, 1940, when we crossed. And the initiation, I have pictures of the whole initiation. And it's something when you go through it.
Right, and that's a tradition that still takes place today.
It takes place every time any ship crosses the equator in the Navy.
Right, right.
And that's unusual. I mean, to go the first year you're in the Navy, you know.
So you spent the night over. You spent overnight in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And you found a hotel. You found a.
Well, you had the privilege of staying overnight.
Right.
But most of us never stayed overnight.
You went back to the ship
We
anyway.
went back to the ship, and usually went back late, so, you know, because normally your liberty's up at like 10 o'clock, you know, but then we had longer to stay, you know.
Right. Were you was the Helena the only ship in the harbor at the time?
Yeah, we were the only one.
So you had the whole city to yourself?
Yeah, we were the only Navy ship. Yeah.
And the banana plantations were where? What country were those in?
In Sao Paulo.
That was
Brazil.
also in Sao Paulo.
Yeah,
I see.
Brazil.
So the entire cruise from Brooklyn to South America took how long?
Oh, I think we stopped at Annapolis, Christmas, and then we stopped in Norfolk for New Year's, and then we stopped in Guantanamo Bay on the way.
In Cuba.
And we went to Cuba, and then on January the 13th we crossed the equator, and I think it was late in December when we got to Buenos Aires, and we stayed in Buenos Aires for I think a week, and then we went over to Montevideo for a week, and then we were in Sao Paulo, and we were in Santos, Brazil during the Mardi Gras, and we attended that. That's the only Mardi Gras I ever went to.
Seen?
And it was interesting.
So that would have taken place late January?
Well, no.
Or was that early
Easter? That's late February when they.
Oh, middle of February.
Middle of February, wasn't it?
So you spent a considerable amount of
No,
time.
we were a long time.
Right,
So
right.
I don't think we got back until late March from South America.
Wow.
No, this was a good shakedown cruise.
So you took your time heading down and
we
took your
took our time coming back.
Right.
We stopped in Guantanamo on the way back, and we also stopped in Norfolk, and then we got back.
So when the ship returns to Brooklyn, to the Navy Yard, what are some of the first things that the crew has to do when they return from that shakedown cruise?
Well, they usually put the ship in the dry dock, and you scrape the bottom because, you know, and you paint the bottom. That's part of the job the ship's company does.
Right.
But the Navy goes over all the equipment in the Navy Yard.
And there must have been considerable reports and paperwork.
Yeah, and paperwork. And
sure.
That. And
so how was your report card? How did the ship do?
Oh, it did good.
Really?
Oh yeah, the crew and everything. They evaluate the crew and all that. Mm-hmm. And while we were in New York, I don't know if you know it, but 1939 was the World's Fair. And we attended the World's Fair in New York at the same time.
So you got to go to a Mardi Gras and the World Fair.
And the World's Fair. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to do in the Navy, and I did it in the first couple of years.
Sure.
I never thought of a war.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
You'd have to be a soothsayer to predict whether that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the war was on because the two English ships chased the Graf Spee into Montevideo.
Right.
They damaged it.
Right.
And that's why they couldn't get out. They couldn't make it out in 24 hours, so they scuttled it.
Because the war was taking place in Europe at the time.
In Europe at the time.
Right.
And I mean, we were in danger at the same time, too.
Sure, sure. So did you have a fear of German U-boats as you headed south on that shakedown cruise?
No, I never did. And even when we was on the Lexington, we were in the Gulf on our shakedown cruise, and we never met any. And they were out there.
Sure. So when you returned to the Brooklyn Navy Yard from your shakedown cruise, how much time did you spend in New York after that?
Well, we spent quite a bit of time because I went home on 10 days leave out of New York, out of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I hitchhiked all the way back to Michigan because I couldn't afford any train fare, $21 a month, you know.
Right, right.
It wasn't like $100. It was $21 a month, and that money didn't go very far.
Sure.
And I hitchhiked and I got home, because in those days there was no problem for a sailor to get a ride.
Sure.
I mean, I wouldn't do it today, but in those days they picked you up.
Sure.
And you were safe.
So you got home in a reasonable amount of time.
I went home for 10 days leave.
10-day leave.
And fortunately, I borrowed the money from my parents to come back, so I rode the train back.
Took the train back.
Yeah.
Considerably shorter trip, I'm sure.
Shorter trip by train, you know. But that was my first time home after almost that's a year and a half in the Navy before, you know.
Right.
But I was lucky when I hitchhiked. I got the first ride all the way through Pennsylvania. And the next day I got to Detroit. But I mean, the money didn't go far in those days.
Sure. So you made it back to Brooklyn in one piece.
Yeah.
Get back on board the Helena. And tell us what happened then.
Then we left, I think it was in July of 1940, when we headed to the Panama Canal and to San Francisco. And that was the first time getting to the West Coast.
Sure. And that was your first trip through the Panama Canal?
Through the Panama Canal.
Well, that must have been pretty exciting.
It was.
Did you think the ship was going to fit, or was...
Well, it fit good.
It fit well?
It was a light cruiser, you know. Yeah, it went through. We made a trip through, and...
How long did it take to transit the canal?
Oh, it takes a day.
A full day?
You know what I mean? You start at one side, and then you get to the other, and you stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't...
They fill the lock, and then they move the ship to the next lock.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a step. I don't know just how long it took, but it was interesting.
Sure.
And when I got to San Francisco, I was fortunate. I got 10 days leave, and I went up to Seattle by train. I met my aunt and uncle And my grandfather